Welcome back to State of the Nation. Put not your trust in princes, nor in the Son of Man, in whom there is no help. The old motto that the king can do no wrong is applied by their cronies to prime ministers as well. But once they abandon their advisers, there is nowhere for them to hide. The brains behind the Labour operation, the queen of the blob, the great betrayer of civil service impartiality, the leader of the original Inquisition into Boris Johnson, Sue Gray no less, has lost the Downing Street power struggle. And if history shows anything, it is that when the great adviser to a leader goes, the leader himself can often follow shortly afterwards. Nero abandoned Seneca and Rome burned. King Charles I thought his execution was a punishment for abandoning Thomas Wentworth 8 years earlier. Alistair Campbell's demise predicated Blair's fall, while for Theresa May, once Nick Timothy and Fiona Hill went, it was never glad, confident morning again. When the adviser goes, things often turn sour. For weeks, those with an agenda against Sue Gray were briefing the media against her, even revealing her salary to the BBC. This decision by Starmer to let her go shows weakness and encourages one thing: more leaks. If leaking to the press does down your internal enemies, then others will learn and will do so, and that will be to the detriment of Mr McSweeney, Sue Gray's replacement. This illustrates a fundamental dysfunction behind the scenes. But does it affect policy? Well, recent events suggests that it may. In recent days, speculation has mounted that Labour's policy to put VAT on private education, the only significant policy to which it committed during the election, is now in chaos. Similarly, plans to raise pensions by reducing tax relief on those earning £50,000 or more per year have reportedly been scrapped, probably because they realised the effect it would have on their overpaid public sector union cronies who would be hit by such a move. Perhaps most importantly, the entire notion of securonomics, the platform on which the Labour Party stood, may well be in doubt. Cynically seizing on and promulgating the misconception of the Truss mini-budget, securonomics was invented as a means of putting the public's unease about the economy to rest. In reality, it merely means economic paralysis. But the Chancellor could be on the brink of betraying her own economic mantra by abandoning the pledge to keep the Tories' fiscal rules and instead redefine the definition of debt, allowing her to borrow a whopping further £50 billion. This is utter folly when the economy, when the British nation, when all of us as taxpayers are effectively so heavily indebted. Though this could trigger increased interest rates with a damaging effect on mortgage holders and business investments, it is a policy the government is apparently tempted by. Bad policies, ill thought out, are a symptom of a disarray at the centre of power in number 10 Downing Street. It is not true, as I'm sure you all know, that a fish rots from the head down. It actually rots from its guts, from the bacteria in its stomach. This government is rotting from the penetralia of Downing Street, the Prime Minister's own office. Let me know your views, mailmog@gbnews.com. I'm joined now by the former Labour MP, Lloyd Russell-Moyle. Lloyd, thank you very much for coming in. Letting your most senior adviser go, who you've appointed, who is your person, after only 3 months, is a terrible sign of weakness, isn't it?
It is difficult to see how it is a positive move, particularly that he's appointed Morgan McSweeney. Your viewers might not know, but it was Morgan McSweeney that recruited Keir Starmer. It was Morgan McSweeney that said to Keir, we will make you Prime Minister if you do what we say and if you dance to our tune. Sue Gray was Keir's woman. Sue Gray was appointed by Keir, and Sue Gray danced to Keir's tune. Now, his most senior adviser will not instead be dancing to Keir's tune, but will be instructing Keir on how to dance. Now, I think that is a problem for a Prime Minister because it means that you don't have people that you know are trusted around you. But it also means that other advisers will know that his word is not his bond in that sense. And so I do think it is a difficulty. But the briefings is particularly common. It is Morgan McSweeney 101. It is what he does, and the latest book out about some of the machinations show that. This is exactly what was being done to try and ease her out. The only...
I think we can't accuse Morgan McSweeney directly of briefing because we don't know who's been
But it is the playbook of that kind of politics that has been pursued. And I do think it is dangerous. Now, There is only one way, I think, that you can salvage this situation. I don't think it will be done, but it would be to appoint Sue Gray as the Cabinet Secretary. Simon Case was also a quasi non-civil service appointment. He came via the external route. And so it would not be impossible to do that. And that would provide a woman still at one of the top table helms. Without that, there is a difficulty. Will it cause a fundamental flaw, a fundamental damage to care, like you were suggesting in your opening? I think that there is still a long way to go, and I'm not sure that we are at the same stage as, kind of when Dominic Cummings left and suddenly he went around briefing against Boris.
No, I don't imagine Sue Gray will brief against Keir Starmer. I don't think that's her style. No. But I think you've touched on two things that are very important. One is, where does power lie in Downing Street? And you're implying that it lies with McSweeney rather than with Starmer, which is very undermining for a leader. And the other is that a leader's strength is partly dependent on his loyalty to his supporters and his advisors. And if as an advisor you think, I won't be supported, then you become less loyal. One of the great things about working with Boris Johnson, and actually some would say this was a fault of his, was that he was always loyal to the people who were loyal to him. And I certainly found that as a minister. And that gave him great strength, because people he'd been loyal to then went out to bat for him. You wouldn't go out to bat for Keir Starmer now, would you?
Well, look, I think that we need to see where the dust settles on this. If we actually see that Sue Gray is still quite influential, she might well be. It might well be cosmetic dressing of moving her away from the public eye, but still she's there able to be a crutch for the Prime Minister to lean on. Then actually the message will get out quite clearly that he is loyal and he had to make some sacrifices, but he made good in the end. And those concerns won't happen.
But that's not how Downing Street works. When you're out, you're out. But
she's not out.
She's gone off to some ridiculous role on the regions. That's out.
She will be his person in the regions and nations.
She's got a more junior job than she had when she was in the Cabinet Office before, and she's reporting to Pat McFadden. Downing Street is about the reality of being close to the Prime Minister and having the Prime Minister's ear. She's going to have to use a foghorn to get through to the Prime Minister's ear.
We will see, because it's there was at the beginning when Labour came in, there was quite a considerable amount of talk about reforming the way the Cabinet Office works, reforming the way the Office for the Prime Minister effectively works. And if this is the opportunity that they needed to spur them on for that, you might see things changing quite dramatically. If they just do this as a reshuffle and this is the fixed position, then I think your concerns are more alive.
And that every Prime Minister, back to Harold Wilson, has proposed a reorganisation in a Prime Minister's office, and a lot of time is spent on this, and it never happens.
No, very often because people talk about a revolutionary approach, and we know in the British system the best approach is an evolutionary approach, and so then it gets stalled in the bookshelves of good ideas that never get implemented.
And the civil service is very good at stopping things it doesn't like, and it didn't really like Sue going to be so political. And I think that's part of the original problem. Anyway, thank you very much to Lloyd. It's a great pleasure to have him back on the programme. In a moment, we'll be commemorating today's anniversary of the 7th of October terror attack on Israel, as the Middle East is on the brink of war.